Hey, what's going on YouTube? So yesterday I released a video talking about Vyse's abilities and what they can do, and kind of theory crafting on the maps of like how it's gonna play out. But today I wanted to go over kind of like the meta pick and how she's gonna change the meta picks on what maps and whatnot, and kind of give the reasons as to why. But before we get into that, I want to shout out my YouTube commenter IX Asper or iXavier, however you say that. That pointed out that her Molly doesn't actually work the same as Killjoy's, to where as you see when she throws it. As we saw there, the Molly doesn't actually hurt Jet if she doesn't actually walk in it. So as we can see, if she just stands still, it will not actively hurt her. So that kind of changes how it plays. It's not exactly a Killjoy Molly. I do think it's going to play very similar though, to where on defense you can play it just as a Molly. Same on attack. If you want to use this to stop people from the defenders from rotating in to help the site hold, it's definitely going to be able to slow them down. It can't really clear angles. That's that kind of the one change there. So if we have a Jet riding here, and we'll use Killjoy, we'll use Clove, I don't care. Clove kind of, you throw the Molly and then you swing out his Vyse. So you can't really clear the angle because Jet won't take damage as long as she doesn't move. So you have to kind of swing out and clear the angle yourself. That being said, I do think this is better. So without the Molly, I think this is like a 50-50. Maybe not, maybe better for the Jet if you don't know she's there. But if you know she's there, it's kind of a straight duel. But with the Molly, I say this puts it more like 730. To where it's better. Go away, Harbor, nobody cares. Okay, I'll do it up here. Like a 730. Which I don't really know if these numbers kind of made up, but the idea here is that it's in your favor, so that because the Jet can no longer strafe back and forth, right? She has to kind of stay there, and you can move freely. And if she does try moving, she's slowed, and she'll take damage, makes her easier to kill and easier to hit. So it's definitely in your favor if you have a hard reader there. Throw the Molly, proc it, and swing. That being said, it's still not 100% in your favor because just like a Neon Concuss or a Breach Concuss, they can still one-tap you. So if you swing out carelessly, you can get one-tapped. But we'll have to kind of wait and see how the Molly is actually used. But, the rest of her abilities, I'm not going to speculate anymore on. We'll wait until she actually comes out Tuesday and we'll see how she actually interacts with all of the other agents and whatnot. But let's go ahead and jump into actual map meta discussion. So right at the gate, we'll do it alphabetically, starting with Abyss. So the problem with this map is it's kind of unknown to me, right? I haven't really seen pros cook anything up on the map. I haven't really seen any whole lot of solo queue. I've seen a little bit. I kind of have a general idea. So typically we're playing a lot of things like Omen and Sova. And the reason for these, and also we kind of have Cypher, and the reason for that is that they have global util because it's such a large map that you kind of need to have that global util to help you out. So overall, the meta is kind of still, I would say, shifting on the map, and especially with Vyse being introduced, I don't have a really good read of what's going to happen here. That being said, I think that replacing Cypher with Vyse on A is definitely possible. So Cyphers typically have a trip here, or maybe like a couple of kill trips, and then if he gets smoked off by like an Omen or his Cage, and he kind of just rains down on them. But if we replace the Cypher with the Vyse, the same idea, she has a bunch of kind of high walls in which she can place her flash, and so when they flood out, they'll be flashed by her. Really strong, I think, and also we can put her wall maybe here on the main, and then maybe wherever the foot traffic, if people are trying to run to plant default or they want to run over here, we put a couple of mollies down and make it harder for them to kind of get out. So I do think that, even though I'm kind of unfamiliar, that I think Vyse's A-hold here is definitely going to be pretty strong. We'll have to wait and see when she's released and what the pros cook up in their scrims or on their solo queue. But I think Vyse will be a good pick here. On attack, I'm not really sure how to properly attack the map. Like I said, this map is still kind of new, so I just don't really know how you want to go about attacking quite yet. We'll definitely have to see how the map plays out. But let's go ahead and move on to maps we're all more familiar with and we actually know how to kind of play to see how they're going to be changed. Next up is Ascent. So when we watch VODs of people play like, like Nats or Fake Anans or Derek or Tins, we have a pretty good understanding of the meta on this map and how they play it. So typically we'll have like a Killjoy B, KO A, Omen A, Sova B, and then we'll have like a Jet or a Raze, and the Jet or the Raze will kind of float and they will kind of contest mid. So a lot of Valorant maps have these kind of 3-lane structures. We have B main, we have mid, and we have, that's too large. We have mid and A main. And so the duelist kind of contests the mid, and then everyone else kind of helps hold the mains for themselves. So Omen has a really strong blind. Killjoy's util makes it really hard to push B. So that's kind of how the defense plays out. And then for attackers, Excuse me. For attackers, we kind of see that it's very common for them to kind of split these kind of lanes to try to contest them. Maybe if you're in like low elo, like me, we all just kind of rush and die. But in general, a lot of the pros are going to be doing this kind of split thing, or they try to do this mind games. But there's a whole lot of like splitting the lanes going on here. Well, let's go over, do I think Vyse is going to replace Killjoy as the meta pick? And honestly, I don't think so. I think Killjoy's still better. You'll see Killjoy and sometimes substitute. You'll see Killjoy and sometimes substitute as a Cypher. But overall, let's go ahead and remove all the extras. I don't think Vyse has the ability to kind of hold B as well as Killjoy does. And realistically, I don't even think it's the sight. I think it's the fact that she just doesn't have any ability to watch this kind of mid lane, you know? So, like, on B, there's not a whole lot of walls I'm seeing for the flash. It's just kind of awkward to play. So there's not a whole lot of places, because a lot of people kind of just run and then immediately go lane. So no one's going to be hit by these two flashes anyways. So it's kind of whatever. And then if you put a flash back on site, well then you're kind of already giving them sight, and retaking B is actually really hard. So you kind of don't want to give them sight. So I don't think the flash has a ton of use, in my opinion. And when we see the wall, the shear, I mean, that's definitely going to be really useful. Maybe like a couple mollies in lane, but overall, I think the main concern that I have with this map is just that Killjoy can lock down the main and the mid. Same thing with Cypher. Cypher can use his trips to have main and mid control. And that's something that when I'm looking at Vyse's util, she doesn't have. She does not have a way to lock down this mid. So she can hard commit to holding B, but you have to dedicate someone else to holding that mid flank. And that can be kind of detrimental. So overall, I still think that Killjoy or Cypher is going to be the better pick here. I think holding B site's just too awkward. Even if you make the argument that, well, you know, she might be good on A, but typically Omens play A. And so you already have his kind of paranoia to stall the flood out anyways. So you're kind of doubling up stall util, and that just doesn't make sense, you know? So overall, I just think that the meta defense is still going to be Killjoy and Cypher. Mainly Killjoy because she's better. So Killjoy just has the ability of having turret and then having the alarm bot here. So it's just way stronger than her Vyse abilities allow right now. And for attack, like I said, it's very common to see people kind of split. Oopsies, that's a terrible arrow. See people kind of split here, and then here, and then here, and then here. Or they kind of go for this kind of like 1-3-1 type of thing to where they want to heavily contest mid. And so just not having this mid control is going to be a detriment on defense. And for attack, I don't really know how useful her abilities are going to be. I think that her wall can be used as a trip maybe. Her flash I don't think is as good as a breach flash. And her mollies, now that I know that they can't even clear angles properly, is kind of like, eh. Don't get me wrong, I think you can definitely play her and, you know, be creative, but we'll have to wait and see how the meta goes. But if we're talking purely meta, I still think, you know, Killjoy is going to be king on Ascent. So no, that's my 2 cents. Let me know what you guys think, but we're going to head and move on to the next map. Hey, Gone from the Future here. So I actually went through the video and I made through Bind and Breeze, and then I kind of had another thought about this. I'm going to put this here and then I'll leave my original thoughts in the video as well. But I thought that since we can actually put Vyse's walls through, or her flash through walls, using it has a way of kind of like a flash zone, the same way that you would use like a Phoenix or your flash on long. It makes it really nice to contest lanes. So she's actually a lot stronger in Bind than I initially think, and I do kind of back to this later in the video, but I wanted to go ahead and put it here. And with this ability to fight for this lane, she's actually probably going to be a pretty good pick on Bind. So I think I'm going to change my original stance that she is unpickable, which I didn't actually say she's unpickable, but I said we have to wait to see the meta, and I still think that's kind of the same idea. It was whether you pick Vyse over double controllers or Cypher. But I think having that flash zone is more powerful. And on Breeze, I kind of got caught up on the idea of B, because that's kind of where Cyphers play, but I didn't really go over A. And looking at A, I think Vyse is actually a pretty strong A hold, and especially if we keep the meta of having Viper on the opposite side. So Viper's like to hold B as well. Viper can hard commit to her B, and then we have our Vyse on our A site, and we can put the flash way high up on one of these walls. And we can also have mollies to make it slow in, and we can put our wall as well, or we can put our wall here, or like a molly here. So I was so caught up in the B hold, because that's very common for Cyphers to hold B, but we might actually see it shift the meta to where Vyse is the A player, and A's easier to hold because of Vyse, and Viper goes back to B. Now, you do lose out on the halls, and that's a bit of a problem. If you don't have a dedicated halls player, there's no trip here, and even if you do commit a molly, once again, there's no way of triggering it. It has to be manual. So there's no way of tripping halls unless you want to use your wall halls, which would be interesting. So you use your wall halls, molly, flash on site. Definitely a possibility. So I'm actually going to change my original opinion that she would not replace Cypher, and we'll have to see how strong she is on A, because that may change the meta to where she is the pick on Breeze, and we play her A instead of B, and we let Vipers go back to playing B, because Vipers do enjoy playing B. Very, very interesting options. We'll just have to wait and see. I do think the conditions I give, which you'll see in the video, is how good her hold is and how good her global util is. But I just wanted to go ahead and put that in there, that I am changing my opinion on Breeze, and Bind as well, as that she has a much stronger hold than I initially thought. But back to the video. Alright, let's talk about the next map. The next map is Bind. So this map was really interesting in the pro scene for a while. So they would drop the Sinti and run double controller, so they'd have Brim and Viper, and so they would have no Sentinel. And the reason why is because Sentinel specialize in locking down the site. However, that's not really how the map was played out. You typically, as a defender, you wanted to defend one of the lanes. There's actually 4 in this map, which is unique to Bind. So there's showers, short, sands, and B-long. And you typically wanted to be in control of at least one of them if you could. So if you had to give one up, no big deal, but you definitely want to control one of them. You never want to give the attackers just both of them. And so most of the fighting happens very early off-site. And so having a Sentinel whose job is to lock down the site didn't really make a lot of sense, because you were attacking, you were fighting much before they got to the site. And the reason they were doing this is basically because retaking is a nightmare on Bind. If you've ever been in that situation to where they lose B and you have to rotate from A, trying to come out here sucks, trying to come out over here sucks. The only time in which it doesn't suck is if you fast flank out, and you'll see a lot of players do this in higher elo, is they do not want to be the people rotating here, because it's really hard to retake B. So in general, they really just want to fight early, so that we don't have to find ourselves in this retake situation, because retaking is a nightmare. So when we do see people play Sentinel on this map, it is Cypher. We see him a lot in solo queue, and there were a couple of pro teams who did play him on this map. Overall, if you watch like Nats play him, he plays a very aggressive Cypher, so he'll put both of these kind of traps here, or he'll put this one here, yeah, and then he'll have his cam, and he kind of throws it deep B main, and to see if they're going to be here or not. And if they're not here, and he typically has someone in hookah, maybe like a Fade or someone else, and if there's any noise here, and if they're not there, very quickly he's going to rotate to go A, because once again, we don't want to find ourselves in this kind of situation. Xander is also a controller main who you can watch for Brim. You'll see that on Brimstone. Once again, if there's action B, like they're all playing this kind of quick rotate because they don't want to be forced into a retake situation. So, that being said, will Vyse replace Cypher as the Sentinel pick if they do choose to play a Sentinel on the map? And looking at it, so Sentinels typically play B, that way you can 3-man A, because A is the more kind of larger site and awkward to hold by yourselves, because you have these lanes short and you have shower, so you typically have like 2 short, 1 shower, or 2 shower and 1 short. The Sentinel plays the weaker side, which is B. And overall, will Vyse replace him? Maybe. I think there's a couple of setups we can do. So those that remember, there's a Dapper cam that's actually above this hallway, so not in it, but above it there's these 2 little halls, or 2 little huge things in which Dapper put a cam on, and maybe we put the flash up there. And I think that will be able to get most people kind of coming out. So it will flash both of them. When it comes to her sheer ability, so that's her wall, you really only get to use it in one place, so you could either use it here or use it here. I don't know how useful it's going to be on the hookah jump out, so I think you're probably going to use it mostly sands, or maybe you're going to use it deeper on site. For mollies, same idea. We're probably going to use one for default, and maybe one in front of octagon or in front of hookah, so that if they try to jump out, they will be caught in it. So there's definitely potential. I think Bind is just in a weird spot because, once again, for a very long time we were running these double controllers, and so Sentinels weren't really the favorite pick. We are seeing Cypher kind of come back into the meta, but in a very weird spot. There's not a whole lot of setups you can do. Well, I mean, Cypher has a ton of setups. I'm a Cypher man. I'm not going to go over all the setups. So we just have a few setups to do on B. But in discussion of Vyse, I think that it's possible. We're definitely going to have to see. I don't know if it's going to be any stronger or weaker than Cypher. But there's a few setups as a Sentinel main that I'm thinking I definitely am eager to try her on Bind. But I do think she falls into the same trap as Cypher has. Noticed that, once again, all of our util is set up in stopping the flood onto site, but a lot of the fighting is typically happening before they get to the site anyways. So we'll have to see if she'll replace the Cypher, or if the meta just still plays around the double controllers or not. But go ahead and let me know what you guys think. You know, what is typical in your games? You know, what kind of elo are you fighting in? And, you know, maybe if you're low enough elo, everyone just says fuck it and 5-man rushes hookah all game. I mean, hey, whatever works, right? Whatever gets you the win. But let me know your thoughts, and let's go ahead and move on to the next map, Breeze. So Breeze, the meta pick is Cypher 100%, and the reason why is, quite frankly, because you have, so let me actually go ahead, you have Viper, and then so the reason you don't pick Killjoy is Killjoy's util has this radius, as you can see. You have to be in this radius to matter, and as you can see, this map is huge. So Killjoy cannot freely move around this map to help her team and have the site locked down. So we don't really play Killjoy, we play Cypher, because his util is global. So he can have a trip main, and he can have a trip halls, just typically where we see them place the trip because of whatever. But maybe you have a dedicated halls player, so you have another trip to help them from pushing here, or you have maybe like a kill trip over here, you know, whatever. The reason we have Cypher is because we want Cypher to lock down B or A, either one works, and then the Viper will play opposite of Cypher. So wherever Viper is, Cypher should be the opposite of. So Viper's locking down A, and that's really, really hard. So the attackers have to decide, do you want to push a Cypher or do you want to push a Viper? And those both suck, and so people say, hey, well, what if we go mid? And that's when you have your Jet, who typically plays this angle here or from doors, and they are opping. And so now the choice becomes, do you want to push Cypher, do you want to push Viper, or do you want to push an op? And all of those choices suck. And so you have to be really creative on attack, and that's why we're seeing Cypher be meta. On attack, Cypher is the kind of lurker. I mean, Viper can also lurk, but it's more common to see Cypher do it. And then sometimes, you know, you want to go with the team to mix it up, but he's really, really good at lurking because, once again, he has that global util, so you can put your trip like here, and then you put like maybe like a trip here, and then so you have flank coverage, and then you can kind of lurk up maybe through mid or whatever, and that's how we're seeing him played. But that's generally why he is the meta pick. So will Vyse replace Cypher on Breeze or not? And I suppose there are two requirements for that to be. One is her util needs to be global, right? So if she has a range like Killjoy, she's not going to replace Cypher because you have to have that global util on this map to matter. And then two, how strong is her hold? Can she really hold out a hard rush? She can really shut that down. She is a Sentinel. She's designed to do that, but I find that when we look at other Sentinels, I mean, Chamber's like just not a real Sentinel, so, but Chamber's hold, of course, is not as good as Cypher, unless you just, you know, hit the headies, so you have to aim better with Chamber, but his hold, as general, just isn't better as Cypher's utility is. Same idea I find with, like, Sage. Sage isn't great. You know, on pistol, sure, you put up a wall, it stops them, but after pistol, no one cares, right? They're going to break the wall, and even if you use a slow orb, like, no one cares, right? They're going, if they want to rush Sage, they're going to rush Sage. Unlike Cypher, that's really, really hard to rush him. So is her util Cypher strong or Killjoy strong? And that's a possibility. You know, there's a lot of these walls in which she could place the flash on. I think the concern here is this pillar. People can play around it and hide it, and so they won't get flashed. And also there's a lot of these weird angles that maybe they can hide behind and not get flashed. So that's giving me kind of pause here. Another thing, you know, is... Why does that work? Okay, so her shear can definitely, so her wall ability can come up. This is good for isolating. We can definitely have mollies here, so people typically like to run this way. Let me actually clear this. People like to, People like to run this way to kind of clear these back angles. So having mollies in that kind of foot traffic would definitely work, definitely help. But we kind of want to see, so I'm hesitant to say she'll replace Cypher, right? Mostly because I don't think having this pillar to play around to not get flash is really strong, and then we have to see the strength of her wall and her molly abilities, and once again we have to see if it's global. If she has global util or not, that's going to be important. I definitely think we're going to see her try to be played on Breeze. We're going to see if that works out or not. I don't know if she's really going to replace Cypher though, because Cypher just has such strong util and his cam, and then on attack he has such strong like lurking capabilities, and I think that's something that Vyse kind of lacks, you know, because once again Cypher has those two trips. He has the trip for here and he has the trip for here, and even if you do end up using Vyse's wall has a trip, you only really get one, so you can't really watch both the kind of angles. So we're gonna have to wait and see how that plays out for her as well. So I'm going to say I'm going to try her, but I am hesitant that she will actually change the meta on Breeze. Let me know what you guys think, and we're going to head and move on to the next, Fracture. So Fracture is also one of those weird maps. We do see that the go-to Sentinel here is Cypher, but you play him really has more like duel oriented. There's not a lot of places, so Cyphers will typically play B. So like A is really weird, right? It's a really weird site. It's kind of similar to mine, to where you really want to fight this early aggression here because the site itself is awkward. It's really awkward to hold, awkward to play, and so Cyphers don't typically see here. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, but I see Cypher has the wall and he has the one way and he does, you know, the setups. Yeah, I know, I'm a Cypher main. I know the setup is there, but I'm saying the VODs that I've watched of high elo players, pro players, Nats, Dapper, all these people, they'll typically play Cypher on B on defense because it's just better, and because typically you're going to fight, and higher elo, you're going to fight these early aggressives. You're going to have typically a Jet, and you're typically going to have a Breach, and Breach is going to have his fault line, and he's going to come up and stun for the Jet. The Jet's going to take a few shots, and then she's going to dash away. So the Cypher doesn't need to be here. You can definitely play here and mix it up, but the site hold is awkward. And so it's more common to see Cyphers play B. And even on the B push, like I said, it's more common to see Cypher play more like duel heavy, because there's not a whole lot of setups you can do here either. You know, I've seen a few fancy one-ways, and people like Spawns do really creative stuff. But overall, you know, when I'm watching Nats play, we're kind of just playing this kind of duel heavy Cypher, so we're not really relying on util. When it comes to attacking, I'm typically seeing Cyphers just lurk. I mean, that's pretty much what Nats does religiously. He's just going to lurk up B. He's going to push out B like this. He has his cam to see if there's early aggression, and now he's going to kind of hug this wall, and then he's going to kind of lurk up and look for kills, and if he finds something, and if the team is winning A or losing A, he can kind of rotate through the enemy spawn and get some picks. So, with that being said, now we have an understanding of how Cypher is played on the map. Will Vyse replace Cypher? And the answer is probably. I don't really know. So the thing about this I'm having is that the util is like it doesn't seem to matter a whole bunch, because like I said, you play Cypher really duel heavy. So using the wall to cut off the B main rush, definitely doable. Maybe putting a molly back here to slow some aggression, but they don't have to, like, they can still see through the molly, right? So they can still shoot you if you're not careful. Maybe we put some mollies tower to slow them pushing up tower, and the flash is interesting. I think early aggressive has a flash might be good if you can throw it out like here or somewhere, and so the attackers have to see it and then get flashed early. But I don't think that your flash would be better than like a KO flash for that. So putting the flash on one of these walls, now that I'm thinking about this through, I don't necessarily think so, because I think the thing about the flash, let's go back to Ascent, is you want it on like one of these high walls where people have to kind of come in and everyone has to funnel in and see the flash. But the problem with Fracture is it's kind of like a crunch map, right? Because you want to have some people going this way and some people going this way, and so there's no one wall in which both people have to look at that flash. And so the flash kind of falls into this really situational place. So the flash, I think, is not as useful. The wall kind of works. The mollies can slow the rush. Yeah, you know, now that I'm kind of really thinking this through and saying it out, I don't think she will replace Cypher. I think that's the fundamental problem there, is since you want to attack from two different angles, there's no one flash to stop them, because, you know, this is tower, and then you see you have all these angles blocking. So even if you do flash the people back here probably ain't flashed, and vice versa. If you flash the people running main, the people arcade will never be flashed. And then your mollies will slow the push, but it may not stall it good, or may not stall it as well. And then your wall will definitely be good for a few seconds, and maybe you'll get one. But once again, you don't have the wall over here, and so these people can just come run and take tower and take arcade space, and then you're kind of dead. So overall, no, I think Cypher's still going to be the meta pick here. And I mean, realistically, like I said, Cypher kind of just duels, but that is, I think he has a better chance of holding the mains with his wire, and the same idea with this wire here. And he can also put a wire up here. This just gives him the better strength of, you know, not getting shot in the back as he's trying to do stuff, and his utility does not need people to look at it to be useful. So overall, I think that Cypher is still going to be king on Fracture if you're going to play Sentinels. I don't think that Vyse will be the meta pick here. That's my opinion. Once again, we'll wait and see what the pros cook up, and, you know, let me know what you guys think, of course. But let's go ahead and move on to the next map, which is Haven. So already, I think Killjoy is still going to be meta here, or even Cypher. I don't think that Vyse is going to work here. And realistically, this comes down to the same problem I had on Ascent, is that this map actually has a ton of lanes. So we have the C-Long lane, we have the garage lane, we have the window lane, we have these two chokeholds for A main, right? So there's like 5 of these. And yeah, if you want to get like real general, you can say that it has 3, which is true. It has C, and then it has mid, or that's too big for mid. We have mid, and then we have the A, but look at how mid and A both split, so I'm counting this as 5. So we have C-Long, which is 1 lane, we have the garage lane, we have the window lane, we have the short lane, or sewer lane, and then A main lane, and Vyse just can't control this, you know? Like, what is she going to do? That's what Killjoy and Cypher have in common, is they can both kind of shut this down. You have a bot here, or even here. You have a turret here, and then swarm here, and maybe here. And so we see Killjoy, look at this. Killjoy now has control of 3 lanes. We have C lane. If they try to push out, they're going to get mollied and stalled. If they try to come garage, we have our turret to let us know. If they try to go B or lurk at B, we know. So we're in control of these kind of 3 lanes, which allows our team to focus on these 2 lanes here. So that can dedicate another player. So we have Killjoy on C, 1 player B, and 3 players A. So 1 person can double up, because if there's only 2 players A, then they each have to contest 1 lane, right? So there's a player who's contesting here and contesting here, and that's not common. We'll typically see more like a Sova and a Jet both push out here. So there is 2 players contesting this lane, and then someone's kind of just watching this, and that's because Killjoy is so powerful in holding these 3 lanes. Same general idea on Cypher. It's not as strong, I would say. I think Killjoy is still pretty meta. Cypher's really strong, though, as well, and you can definitely substitute him. Same idea. We have maybe a wire for garage. We have a wire for B. We throw our cage here. We throw our cam on one of the things here, and we kind of play black in this site, maybe the Dapper spot. And once again, we have control of these kind of lanes, so they can't just run wild and crazy. So overall, really, really strong pick. And so now when I'm looking at Vyse's abilities, let me remove all this. So she just doesn't have the control that she needs for all of those lanes. So even if we put our flash here, we put our wall here maybe, and then maybe like a molly here. But the problem with the mollies is that they're activated. They're not like trips. You have to actively know someone's there and activate it. Same thing with the flash. Like, it's not a trip. You have to manually activate both of these abilities. So you have to know. So you have to dedicate a player here for them to be there and for them to know, and then have you pop the mollies so that they can't be rushed. So overall, even if we did say, so even if I do say that the flash is totally fine on C, because I do think it'd be really strong, and we have the wall ability here on garage to let you know no one's going up garage, I think that that's still only 2 lanes, right? We're controlling the C lane, we're controlling the garage lane, but the B lane is still just wide open. And even if you did put a molly down, you would need someone else to tell you that they're B, or you would have to look at your own minimap and see that someone else is B. So you can't just have B undefended. And that's the same problem. So if you put the wall here, and then we put, I mean, the flash kind of has to go here. I don't think the flash would be useful as garage. And we put some mollies down. That's still like the same problem, where we only really have control of this lane and this lane. And garage, they can easily just kind of sneak up on and walk past, because this is a manual activated molly. So just out the gate, I can't in good conscience say that she's going to replace Killjoy, because of how many lanes Killjoy can control. It's just not going to be enough on Vyse, in my opinion. For attack, Cypher and Killjoy both are really strong lurkers. You typically have Omen, so if you have Killjoy and Omen, Omen can also lurk, so these two kind of swap off. If you have Cypher, Cypher has his kind of mental cage here. You throw this cage, and it denies them vision, so nobody knows what you're doing. You kind of throw this cage as default every round, so Cypher can either lurk past the cage, you can 5-man, so all of your team can 5-man sneak past the cage and kind of contact explode up on A. You can just not be there, right? You can just straight up throw the cage and leave, kind of, you know, because they don't know. This person who plays A, like a Jet or whatever, peeks out, they don't know what you're doing. It's kind of like a mental game that Cypher has to play. But overall, you know, also potential lurker. So all 3 of these characters, really strong lurk potential on this map. And for defense, the lane, controlling these 3 lanes is more powerful. So Vyse is definitely not going to be the Haven meta sentinel, in my opinion. Of course, I'm kind of just going to quit saying this, but, we have to wait and see what the pros are cooking up, but I can't in good conscience say that she would be better than Killjoy ever on Haven. So next map, we have Icebox. So Icebox there's 2 Sentinels you play, and you can kind of play them on the same team if you want to double up Cinti, which is Killjoy and Sage. Where is Sage? Sage. And so the reason this happens is because Sage's util is more about getting the bomb down. If you watch a lot of high elo players, from, what I mentioned before, Tins, Derek, Nats, Fake and Ans, Demon One, whoever your favorite pro is, you're going to notice when they play Icebox, that the moment someone taps bomb, everyone stops them, right? It's called plant denial, and so like the enemy Sova is going to use shock darts, Viper's going to use Molly, Killjoy is going to use Mollies, like everyone is going to stop you from planting because they don't want you to get the bomb down. Once the bomb is down, it makes defending really, really hard, and so everyone and their mother is util dumping the moment you tap that bomb. So not good, and so that's what Sage is picked for, is that it makes it easier to plant. We'll also see that Gecko is sometimes picked on this map, and that's the same idea. You throw Wingman out basically to get sacrificed to all of this util, and then you once they're util dumped, you look for fights, and then you pick the spike up and plant it yourself. Killjoy is not about util denial, but one, she's about plant denial. Once again, we see that Molly come out because you don't want them planting either if you're the defender. But more importantly, what she's really stopping is the lurk, right? The mid lurk on this map is really, really powerful. So lurking is powerful on a lot of maps, but this map it's like a win con. The moment, you'll see a lot of Vipers, they'll throw this orb here. If the Viper gets a lurk off and she gets 1 or 2 picks, the attackers win, right? So if Viper is lurking and she finds that pick, it is like, the best analogy is like Harry Potter and Quidditch, like catching the golden snitch. If she catches 1 or 2 people off of this lurk, the defenders have a really, really low chance of winning, and that's what this turret's for. You put the turret mid, if Viper tries to pick, and then bam, we know she's there. And then once again, you also have the alarm bot over here, and so if she tries to rotate, boom, we catch her. And so that's what Killjoy's really for, is catching this mid lurker, and of course we're going to stop them from planting. So, now that we have a general idea of why we play Killjoy and why we play Sage, will Vyse replace Killjoy on Icebox? And that's also why you don't see a lot of people play Cypher. And the answer to that is, will Killjoy or will Vyse replace Killjoy? And the answer to that is, once again, no. I can't say that that's better. Let me actually put that util back. Since Killjoy's main purpose is to stop the Viper lurk, I don't think Vyse's abilities allow her to do that. So the flash, once again, is more about holding the site, and B's, I'm looking at all these little angles in which you can avoid the flash. So if we put the flash up here or up here, there's so many angles in which they can hide from. So they don't want to get flashed. So even if they do get flashed, they can duck. Well, this is actually a wall bang, almost, maybe not that. But there's a lot of places that they can kind of duck behind cover. So even if you do flash them, when it comes to mollies, now that we know that they don't work like killer mollies, putting it default and doing that will not stop them from planting. It will just kind of stop them only if they're moving into plant. But the moment they initiate, they can just, as long as they're staying still and planting, it doesn't look like it will hurt them. So it doesn't help with plant denial. So the flash isn't useful, the plant denial isn't useful, or her molly's not useful, and the wall ability, while cool, I think just doesn't have, where are you going to put it? Like here? That's not great, because then you still have this other lane. And if you put it here, they still have this other lane. Maybe, once again, you can put it here, but there's some ways around these, and they only last like 1 or 2 seconds. Like here's not like incredibly useful either. So when I'm looking at the Behold, it's not better than Killjoy. Having Killjoy to stop the Viper lurk is just so powerful. And then Sentinels don't typically play A because the A players need to play early. Because, let me actually move this so I can tell you guys what I'm talking about here. Typically, on A, this is why if you're like, when you're on attack, if you just rush A, so many teams lose A, is because they want to hold the site, but that's really awkward. So typically what you really want to do is you want to fight early here, and you don't want them to win. You want to force them to use util and fight you here to try to get to the site, because once they're on site and they have util, it's like really, really awkward for you to fight as a defender. So typically you'll see Jets and Yorus and all the duelists come up on pipes and raise, and they'll fight early. You'll see people sit here, and that way they have this My god, that is not a straight line. They have this sight line to fight this guy early on belt. Just there. Some people will try to sneak into here, and that way they get an early fight here. Some people will try to sneak down here and get an early fight. You'll just see a lot of high elo duelists try to fight this space early because they don't want to fight the actual A site because it's really awkward. And then Killjoy oftentimes does not set up on A. Sometimes you'll see it. You'll see them throw some mollies there. But a lot of the setup is just kind of doing this, once again, to stop that Viper lurk. So, overall, no. Icebox, I still think Killjoy is going to be the queen on Icebox. You can't play her unless the enemy team does something stupid and not have a Viper. But you wouldn't know that until you actually get in the game. So, Killjoy's still going to be queen. So let's go ahead and move on to my next map, or our next predictions. And that's going to be Lotus. Lotus is a very interesting map. So it has 3 sites, but unlike Haven, it's not played the same way. So Haven, you see we have, once again, we have these 5 lanes. That's not really the case with Lotus. Lotus still, despite being 3 sites, still kind of only has 3 lanes. We have the C lane, we have the B lane, and we have the A lane, right? So they're not, even though they have 3 sites, they're not played the same way. And so what we see very often is a lot of teams will kind of fight for A. They want this A space. So you'll see a lot of raise nades, fade sieges, flashes. You know, if you have like a Phoenix here or a Yoru or a Sky, they'll flash from here. We'll see a lot of nades, seizes, like I said. So a lot of like util is used to for fighting. For the rest of the map, so how it kind of works out is you have 1 person C, 1 person B, and 3 on A for defense. And it can kind of change. And the B player kind of wants to hang out in a place in which they can rotate quickly to A or C. They want to play like quick rotates. They can also come out and open the door here. And then the C player is typically going to be Killjoy. And then your 3 A players are going to be ones that are fighting for this kind of space. And that's kind of how it plays out on defense. But now let's go ahead and talk about Sentinels. So Killjoy is kind of the go-to Sentinel on this map. Her util is really, really strong. There's not a whole lot. This covers here. You can put the alarm bot out here. Actually, turn goes on B. So once again, we find ourselves with Killjoy just being able to control multiple lanes. So we have the C lane controlled. Even if we don't use the bot here, we still will stall them out. And so it makes it really hard pushing into C because the Killjoy, yeah, they can't just go B because there's a turret here. And then they have a hard time going A because, once again, there's typically 3 people fighting for the A main space. So Killjoy kind of controls these 2 lanes and everyone else kind of fights A, which makes her really, really strong. On the other hand, Cypher is in the kind of the same boat. Excuse me. Cypher, same boat. We put a trip here. We put a trip here. Cypher, maybe early cams, or maybe cams for here. And then you have a couple of one-ways here if you want to throw them out. You can also throw a cheeky little early, whoopsie, not you. Cheeky little early trip here. And this kind of falls, so Cypher kind of falls into the same idea of Killjoy, is this allows you to kind of really have some type of control over 2 lanes, and this frees your team up to fight for 3 people here on the A main fight. And so that's kind of how it plays out. So now let's go ahead and put all these away, and let's talk about Vyse. Vyse, let's go ahead and run through the examples here. Vyse, let me think about it. So I think Vyse might be doable. We are seeing some people play Sage and they'll wall here, or Deadlock and she'll wall here. Definitely possible to have Vyse wall here as well. For the flash, there's definitely a couple of angles in which we can place it up high. Definitely very useful. Mollies, once again, we can molly the choke. Definitely hold here. And then maybe we put one here if they want to run water, or maybe you put one over here in the bin. So definitely possible. So this is kind of the common theme I'm running into with Vyse, is that she's really, really good at holding like 1 lane, right? So she has the ability, so this is, I'm going to make it next, this and next. So let's say her flash is here, and then here's the wall and the molly. And so holding this C hold is really, really strong, but you're lacking the B hold, right? There's no turret or trip here to watch the B hold, but like the C lane in my head is locked with what we've seen from her abilities. We can lock this C hold down. But that's kind of where we run into that issue to where the B lane just doesn't have anything. So we definitely have 3 here fighting, and we definitely have our B player here, and our B player needs to be really conscious of that. So will she replace Killjoy on Lotus. I'm gonna say no. I say that if she has potential, right? So I don't think she's a terrible pick here because like Deadlock is also kind of okay on this map, and so is Sage. So she has potential, and I think it comes down to understanding the weakness of the character, and that seems to be she will lock this lane down. She will lock the C lane down, but understand that you have nothing for the B lane, meaning that you need to dedicate one of your teammates needs to be dedicated to the B hold. They have to be here. They have to make sure that they're not getting flanked and not getting lurked on. And I don't know how reliable that's going to be in solo queue. In pro play, maybe you're in high relo and or on your team and you're playing it out. If you have a dedicated B player who understands because they have Vyse that they can't kind of easily leave the fight, this still allows for 3 people to fight A main, the A main space control. So it's definitely a possibility. I would say overall that in my head, Killjoy is still the meta pick, and it's still going to be better for controlling, having control of those lanes. But if you want to substitute Vyse and you have someone who understands that they need to be the strong B player, it's possible to play her on this map, but I don't think she will be more meta than Killjoy, but I do think she'll be strong, if that makes sense. So I guess she gets like a half point for Lotus. And on attack, Killjoy, once again, Sentinels and Controllers kind of switch between being the lurkers, so that's kind of what the same thing you're going to do. Even with Vyse, you would throw your wall. I think this is actually better for attack on Vyse because you really only need one of these lanes to be watched, right? Because you can have like a wall here, and this covers if they want to push out B, and if they want to push out C, that wall covers both of them. Same idea on C. Let me release this. This covers if they want to push out here and if they want to push out here. Now, this is a bit later, so if we had something like a Cypher trip, Cypher can trip in here, or even earlier, he can trip like here and here, so he can kind of double up his trips here. But if you want to basically just see it has one Cypher trip, if maybe you're on Eco and you only have one Cypher trip, you can definitely contest both lanes with Vyse's wall here. And if you're hard committing to a C hit, Vyse's wall is really, really good. On attack, I'm interested to see how long it takes for the flash to set up to see how useful that's going to be. You can definitely throw it through this wall, same way with like a breach flash, and definitely flash the 3 people fighting for the A main space, and that's going to be really useful. But once again, I think after you throw it through the wall, it has to take like 1 second to set up, so it's not like an instant proc. But overall, I think that's my 2 cents on it, is that she will definitely be a strong pick if you have a dedicated B player. If that's not the case, Killjoy is still going to be meta. And I still think she'll still be meta even with Vyse, but I think Vyse will be okay. You're not making yourself substantially weaker like on Icebox. Like, not having Killjoy on Icebox makes it real weaker for the defenders, because then you have to be conscious of that Viper lurk. But I don't think you'll be too much weaker if you pick Vyse on Lotus. But let me know what you guys think, and let's go ahead and move on to the next map, which is Pearl. Now, Pearl's an interesting map. So, for the most of the time, we're seeing, once again, Killjoy. Now, that's interesting because Killjoy's util has a radius on it, so you would oftentimes think Cypher would be the better pick here. And we do see people play Cypher. So it's not like no one ever plays Cypher on this map. But we're seeing that the real meta pick for a very long time was Killjoy, which was really interesting. And I think that came down to the fact that the map kind of has this kind of, what do I want to say, like these compact angles, right? So even though you have this radius, you're still only like fighting in these kind of compact areas, except for long, right? Long's really, really long. But, you have these compact kind of angles, so you're not really fighting all over the map. Once again, this follows the kind of 3-lane patterns to where you have B main, you have A main, and then you have mid. And mid kind of splits into 2 areas, but this is pretty common, just like we saw on Ascent. People will oftentimes split B by going here and here, or they will go A main, and some people will try to go art. Same general idea of hitting like a split on a site. So it basically has those 3 lanes, mid, A main, B main. So for the defenders on defense, I think Vyse will be pretty strong. Now, the question I'm having, so what we'll see, let me go, this is a very common Phoenix map as well. Phoenix love this map, and the reason why is that they have what are called flash zones, right? So the moment the enemy team gets up here, let's say we have an enemy, this guy, whatever. Actually, that's stupid. Why would you pick Brum on this map? Let's say you have Viper. which Viper is actually the lurker, but whatever, we'll get over it. So suppose once the enemy team gets to this point, Phoenix flashes and everybody dies, right? Because when you look at this actual zone here, let me move people so you see it, there's no way they can run to cover, right? They can't run all the way back here. They can't run all the way back here. They have to they're just stuck in this square. And so this is what's called a flash zone. So Phoenix flashes, and then he just completely kills everybody. And so Phoenixes really love that. So now, when we look at Vyse's flash, let's actually say we put it up on this wall, or way up here on this wall, it's the same general idea. You have this flash zone, and I think that's going to make you really, really strong, but are we doubling up on the resources? That's what I want to know, right? Because if Phoenix is already doing this, is it needed for you to also have a flash? I think your flash will be better than Phoenix's, because Phoenix's, comes out, but it will also blind anyone over here. Unlike Vyse's flash, where you put up high up on a wall, and it will only blind the people looking this way. So I think the flash will be a little better, but that's like my main concern here. Oh my god, I'm losing my ability to speak. My main concern here is that if we're committing too many resources to the same thing, but having a really strong Vyse flash for Vyse's hold, I think that looks really good for Vyse. I do. I think putting up a wall here and hitting this flash zone is really good for Vyse. Let's go ahead and move some other things out of the way. Let's think about her wall. I don't think her wall is long enough to wall this whole thing off. We have to wait and see the actual length of the wall, but I don't think that's going to work. But maybe you can, if it's like a diagonal, which I don't even know if it can be a diagonal. We'll have to wait and see as well. Maybe you can do like a diagonal sage wall with it, but I doubt it. I think your wall would be really good back here. So if you have a really aggressive, where's she at? Neon, and maybe she survives your flash zone, which I don't think she would. And she gets past here, boom, this procs, and then you can fight her here. Let me actually move these things out of the way. Over there, over there, over there. So, overall, we have the wall back here. We have our flash way up here on the wall for this flash zone. And then we just kind of put our mollies, either one in front of here or in, over here by default, so they can't kind of run in there. I think Behold and Vyse would look really, really strong. She still runs into that problem of not having anything for this lane over here, but that's less of a problem on this map because you'll typically have a duelist wanting to... Oh my god, I need to learn how to use this software correctly. Sorry. You'll typically have a duelist wanting to fight mid, right? It's very, very common. And so even if we do have Phoenix might opt to kind of hold this while the Vyse holds the long angle. So you put your flash up here, you wait for the flash zone, boom, bam, you're rocking it, you're going crazy, and then Phoenix can watch this lane for you. So you don't really have to commit resources like Haven where you have all those lanes you need to have that strong hold. It's not the case. We typically will have a duelist wanting to push and fight for the mid space for us, or well, maybe I won't say typical, because everyone has duelists who are actually not afraid of dying, but higher elo and pro duelists are not afraid of taking these fights mid. And so, all right, as I was saying, the duelist being able to kind of fight for the mid allows you to really worry about locking down B. As for the A on this map, I don't really know. A has a lot of weird kind of intricacies to where you have this elevation, and there's not really a place to push the flash. So I think if you do want to play her on Pearl, you're definitely going to play her on B, which is very common. We see a lot of killers play B. Cypher has a few little setups in Dugout. He has like this little trip here, and then a trip here, and he kind of wall bangs. Possible, but I don't think her A hold is going to be as strong as her B hold when I talk about Vyse. So overall, I do think it's better. And while talking about the flash zones, I realized something that we can go back to bind. And maybe that we can use her flash through this wall here, the same way that a Yoru or a Sky might flash for this zone here. That's a possible, making she might be better at fighting for this lane control. And if that is true, then she's definitely going to be more powerful in bind than I initially thought. I didn't actually consider that at the time. Let's go back to Pearl. So on attack, we typically have... Once again, we either 5-man rush, or we have our splitting options, or we typically have kind of like split, like a late lurker. So we have someone kind of chill mid, and then people rush, and then they get a lot of information, and then we try to have this guy kind of sneak up behind people and stab them in the back. So for attacking, I think Vyse will also be fine here. Once again, I view the trip, the wall could be used as a trip for like one-man Cypher trip. If we're hard committed to a B hit here, we can put the wall here, know if someone's flanking. Same idea, let's go ahead and just draw this. We have the wall that could go here, we have the wall that could go here. If we're not getting flanked out very often, we can use the wall in post plants. I mean, in my head, I've kind of just used the wall as a trip, but it is definitely a post plant tool if you want to use it that way. In my head, I think the trip would make more sense, but that's just how I'm initially viewing it. Definitely when it gets released and we see how she's played, someone might cook up some really creative stuff with her. But suppose we do place it, maybe we get the bomb down here, and then we can, that's a really big line, bomb down here, and we throw our wall like here, so when people try to come in and stop, and they'll get stuck here, and they'll have to fight us. That's a possible option. But overall, since she's a Sentinel and we're more defense oriented, I do think that it's really possible that we're going to see her replace Killjoy on Pearl. I think the meta shifting to Vyse, so long as you have a duelist who's willing to fight mid for you, will be really, really powerful. But let's go ahead and move on to the next map, which is Split. Split is a fan favorite. So the thing about Split on attack, if you want to play the map really, really well, you kind of just want to fight mid. So you once again have 3 lanes. You have the B main, you have mid, and you have A. And A kind of opens up to 2 lanes, but it's still kind of just 1 lane really. And the most important lane typically is going to be mid. You're going to see this in very common VODs like Som and Exter and even like Nats. Even though Nats has a Cypher player, will typically play A main on the wing. His team will be, it's like 3, so 3 in the mid, 1 in B main, 1 in the A main, and they play like this. And because you want to control mid, and once you control mid, you can decide if you want to end on B or A. It's very uncommon for them to group up and rush 5-man B main, because that just, it sucks trying to do that, because there's so many of these angles that you can just kind of rat in, and you can just kind of play around, and so rushing B main is never ideal. You almost always want to fight mid, or and then decide what to do after you have control of mid on the attacker side. On defense, we basically want to stop, not really the mid fight, because that's going to happen regardless of what we do, but we want to lock down our sites. We want to make sure that if they do try to hard commit to a site, that's really, really awkward for them and really hard. We also want to kind of shut down the late lurker. It's pretty common on attack to have someone like Cypher, if he throws his cages here, once again, this is like the mental game from Haven, to where it's possible Cypher lurked through one of his cages, it's possible 5-man lurked up here, you know, we don't know what the Cypher's doing, or he throws his cages and he sneaks away and then activates them to kind of put that mental pressure, and then he kind of chills, right? He chills right here, and then your team fights and then wins B or whatever, and then Cypher kind of slowly sneaks up and then shoots the people who are playing Heaven in the back, right? So it's very common to have a late lurker on Split. So on defense, like I said, you want to, as a Sentinel, you basically want to make pushing this site really hard, and you also want to stop the late lurker if you can. So you'll see at higher level elo, I know a lot of Cyphers like to play B, because there's like this wire in the setup, and once again, you know, I'm a Cypher man, I know the setup, I know what we're doing here, but it's more common to see higher level players play over here. So Nats is a good example. He'll pretty much always throw this wire or this one, and then he'll throw one on the main, and then we're going to put our cam either on site or early, and we get that early info. And if they're here, then he's going to be ready for the fight. If they're not here, he likes to come and actually help with the mid fight, because that's such a common pattern that they're going to be fighting mid anyways, and I want to go ahead and fight for them. And then if they are late or they're not actually mid, well, pushing into the site is going to be awkward. Right, so kind of Split A has these 2 lane situations, and we want to control both of them. The same example for Killjoy. I don't really see Killjoys played too often on this map, or I don't really watch Killjoy being played on this map. I think Cypher is the more meta pick, but Killjoy, once again, you can have your turret, boom, we have the bot, boom, we have our mollies, or we just use one, boom, whatever, and as you can see, these lanes are now controlled by Killjoy. So, let's go ahead and think about how to play Vyse on this map. Realistically, so Sentinels, as you can understand, like to play A. You can switch up, you know, we always go to your site whenever you need, but we'll typically see that B is typically the strong site, or typically the site which will have Omen because of his paranoia. This is, as you see, his paranoia basically blinds everybody here, really powerful, and then you'll typically see Jets fighting, your duelists once again fighting mid for that mid fight. You'll typically have like 2 people male, 1 people Vince, or vice versa, 2 people Vince, 1 people male, and you kind of have that fight, and then Omen has the control of the main, and so the Sentinel controls the A main here. So, can Vyse control the A main is the question, if she will replace Cypher or Killjoy. And so let's look at it. So she has her wall ability. This only stops one of them unless she gets out early. So the barrier is like, what, right here? So unless she comes out early, I should probably use a different color for the barrier, huh? Let me go ahead and pick this. So the barrier goes here, and then we go here. And so unless you can come out early and get this early wall, I don't think the wall is super useful. Putting it here is not great because it only gets 1, and then of course they can kind of just run Heaven on you, which is not super great. Putting it Heaven also has the same problem to where they can go the A main lane. So the wall overall is kind of once again, I don't think it's long enough for this. I don't know how long it's going to be, but this seems a little too long. Maybe we put it up here, or no. So when I think about how to use the wall, I think it's running into the problem that it can't control both of these lanes. It can deter one of them, but it won't stop both. So if they decide to split on A as a hard commit, it's not going to stop them. When it looks at the flash, there's a couple of angles. We can definitely put it up here really, really high, and that's going to get people flooding out A, and even some people who are coming out Heaven will probably be flashed by it. So that's a potential stall tool. And mollies, once again, we can put one of them here and here. Same idea. The problem that we're running into is I think there's too many lanes on A. Because we need to control both of these lanes as a Sentinel. We need to make sure that we're locking this down. Especially even if they don't come to our site. We see that our Cypher and our Killjoy both had util here. And so this will stop the late lurker. Right, so let me go ahead, actually use Killjoys. So let's say that my Killjoy is the defending and my Cypher is the attacker. So we'll put the turret here. Boom. Bam. Bop. Right, so we have our defensive setup as Killjoy, and we're chilling. And then Cypher wants to be the aggressor, and so Cypher throws his cams, or his cages. Boom. Bop. And he tries to sneak past. Well, even if he does get past this point, he will come here and get hit by the alarm bot. So, not great. If he tries to come out here, boom, turret sees him, you're on site, you can shoot him. So, it controls both of those lanes with the Sentinel's util. When it comes to Vyse, I don't think you can control both lanes. I think that's the crux of the issue that we keep running into, is that if there is only one lane, she will dominate that lane. But these maps in which can have 2 lanes and the late lurker is just, it's not great for her right now. I think Killjoy or even Cypher will still be the meta pick here. So, I don't think she's going to work on defense on split. You definitely are going to fall for a lot of late lurks. If the enemy team has a Vyse and you're playing attack, definitely take advantage of the fact that she can't control both of these lanes and use one of them to lurk up and stab the enemy team in the back. For attack on Vyse, she kind of loses out in my opinion. Like Cypher's mind game here is really strong, so I watched more like Nats, and Nats kind of like Cypher on this map more than Killjoy. So this is a mind game that Nats pretty much throws every round. Really, really strong mind game. You don't know if the Cypher is going to try to come out this way. You don't know if he's going to try to sneak up Heaven and maybe stab the Vince player in the back. Or, you know, come back, and if his team is winning on B, kind of stab the Heaven players in the back. We don't really know that. Or if he's just going to slowly come back and once again be the late lurker as their team fights on B or whatever, fights on A, and then he's going to, you know, come on out and just decide to stab people in the back here or stab people in the back here. It's just this mind game's pretty strong. Well, maybe not in low elo, because low elo players don't care, but that's the purpose of doing this mind game, is denying them where the Cypher is. Or even if not just Cypher, maybe all 5 of you sneak up Heaven and you take control of Heaven and just kill them all. I think that's really, really strong. I think Cypher's trips are going to be good. You put one here. You put one here. So, I mean, I know they're good. When compared to, like, Vyse's wall, I mean, if you're hard committed to C, maybe you have the wall here, and maybe, so if someone flanks you out and they catch you, boom, it triggers. Same idea here, you can probably put the wall here. Maybe, here's not great. I mean, it's better. Most people will rotate through mid more than spawn, because this takes too long. This takes like 2 seconds, this takes like 5 seconds, which is way too long. or I don't actually know the time, but it has in general, it's quicker to rotate through mid. So maybe this is okay, but I think that the wall being here would stop both people from pushing out, has a trip. In post plant, there's not a whole lot of places on B that I think we can use the wall. Heaven's a real awkward situation because you have those elevation changes. A, once again, the elevation changes make it awkward as a post plant tool, and I don't think the wall's going to be long enough here. So overall, I don't think she's going to be met on split either. I think we're still going to default to Cypher or Killjoy on split. So let's go ahead and run to our next map, which I believe is our last map, which is Sunset. Sunset is interesting. I think this might be a Vyse map. I do. Let's go ahead and look at Cypher. So Cypher's the premier pick. What you will typically see is you will have Cypher on B, 2 on A, and then a duelist will either play here or here. Let me actually make those X's. So you want to have a duelist kind of contesting the mid. And this is only, my bad, there's actually like 3 people A. So you either have someone controlling this market for the Cypher, and Cypher's controlling B main. We have also the mid control up here on, I don't know, I forget what it's called, but basically the mid peak for the defenders. And then you have 2 people who want to fight early here, and then maybe 1 person who's a little more reserved here. So you might have like a raise nade or a fade C's on this map is very common as well, kind of stopping them from pushing A. So, and that's the reason Cypher is played over here, is because you really only need to control the B main. You only really need to control this lane here. You don't need to control the mid lane because that's what the duelists are going to do. And then the A lane is really hard to control because it can split into 2. And so typically you want to dedicate more people to that. That's how we're seeing the pros and high level elo players play it. And once again, you heard me say that since you only need to control 1 lane, I think Vyse is going to be really strong here. We have the wall, very, very good. I don't need to control the mid because that's my duelist should control it. So the wall is going to come up. Once it comes to the flash is a little awkward. I know that controlling the 1 lane's fine, but you can put the flash here. Putting it back sight makes it a bit awkward because they can hide, so there's not like a super great flash zone. Maybe you put it over here, and then they try to come out this way, and they get flashed. Or they try to come this way, and maybe they can flash like that. Overall, this pillar is just kind of awkward to play around, in my opinion, with the flash. But definitely doable. For mollies, I mean, obviously you can put a molly in the choke. You can put a molly in default. You can put a molly here if if the duelist loses this duel and there's a chance for people to come here. Or you can put it even further deeper. And you can activate that to stall as your team is trying to rotate over to you. So only needing to control 1 lane makes me think that Vyse is going to be really good at controlling this lane. The problem I'm having more realistically is just how awkward I think this pillar is to play around for Vyse. I mean, having the flash right here seems the most obvious solution. You put the wall, you let the wall come up, you pop the molly here. Maybe let's put one here as well. We pop the molly, we take this 1v1 since the wall is up, the team can't help. We then kind of maybe dip over here, and then after the wall goes down, the team floods out, you pop the flash, you swing out. Definitely going to be really, really strong at controlling this B main little hold here. Yeah, but you definitely, once again, you do need this player market. And you don't typically have to control that as Cypher either, but Cyphers will sometimes go ahead and throw a trip there as a clove ability. We throw our trip B main, the indestructible one, or we have this one. I like this one better since people kind of util dump the indestructible one now, or the unbreakable one. And then sometimes you'll throw one here, or sometimes you'll throw one mid in case people are really, really lurking. But for the most part, this mid lane is kind of taken care of by the duelist, so it's not your concern. So you can kind of really focus on this 1 lane, which I think plays into Vyse's strength really, really well. So that's going to be nice. So I think that this is a Vyse map. I think we're going to see her definitely played. I don't know if she will replace Cypher, because Cypher does have a lot of really nice abilities overall with his cam and whatnot. But I definitely think she's another pick, and I don't think you're going to make yourself any weaker. Just like with kind of like the Lotus, like it's a good pick, it's okay. It's not like Haven to where you're losing a lot of control of lanes. So I think it's a Vyse map. I do think that's pretty good. I think on attack, Cypher likes to Cyphers typically like to lurk, and they're pretty good at that. So we can go ahead and, I mean, this is just like what Sentinels are good at, right? Since our util doesn't help with side executes, we can put our traps here and here. We kind of stop the flood out. So with Vyse, we kind of basically just have one trip, and so we need to decide if we can place these in places that kind of let us know. So I think this one's going to be really powerful, because even if they come through spawn, which is very uncommon, but maybe they do, or they come out mid, or maybe this guy gets ambitious, right? So no matter where they come from, once they walk past here, they'll trigger the wall, and so you'll know. On A for a trip, maybe we do something. I mean, the barrier is like right here, so you kind of either have to wait and throw it after the barrier drops and then do stuff, or you kind of throw. This one kind of works if you're worried about it. If you're hard committing to an A hit, then throwing it. Anyone who's rotating through spawn or mid will hit that. You will not catch these rotators, but that's also true for the Cypher Wire, so I'm not too worried about that. And then, of course, if you're lurking mid, this wall is also really useful. So if the A players get too ambitious and push out, your wall will trigger and you'll hear them. So that's a possibility. Once again, like in my head, I've committed kind of the wall has a trip, even though I don't know if that's going to be more useful as a trip or post-plant tool, because there are possibilities of using it as a post-plant tool, but I do think having it as a trip is also an option that I don't think should be discounted, and in my head seems really strong. We'll have to wait and see, and maybe it's just, maybe it is stupid to commit it as a trip, and maybe it's more important to use it for post-plants, but the wall only lasts like 2 seconds anyway, so maybe it's not super great for post-plants. I don't think for post-plant you want to put it here because there's this elevation they can get around. Putting it here on post-plant, if you're not worried about a flank, is pretty strong, because when they come out market, they're going to be stuck. They can't go back behind. A post-plants, this is interesting. We have this kind of weird little pocket we can play around, but I don't know, because planting safe is typically not great. You kind of lose this round if you plant safe. It's better to plant out in the open. That way people can actually play off the bomb, because if you plant safe, people can kind of just defuse and you can't really fight them. Maybe we put a wall here, maybe we put a wall here. You know, there's definitely options on post planting here. For attack mollies, definitely throw one here. It's the same idea as like a killdrain molly. We wanted to stop people from, we want to stop the defenders to rotate to stop us from taking A, if we're going A, you know. And then for her flash, I'm really not sure how we're going to use her flash on attack yet. We have to kind of wait and see how long it takes to actually set up. But overall, I think Sunset's going to be a good map, because we only need to control that one lane. I think it's going to be a really good map for Vyse. We're going to have to kind of wait and see kind of how the meta shifts and what we're doing here and everything. But I think that's my 2 cents. I want to hear what all of you guys have to say about it. And overall, I'm sure while editing, I'll put up a tracker of how many maps I think she will change and how many that won't change. But yeah, let me hear your guys' discussion, and hope to see you guys in the next video.